We turn again this morning to the 4th chapter of Romans. We looked at it in brief last week, but we want to zero in still on a couple more elements within this chapter. And so I begin by reading Romans 4, verses 13 through 16. For the promise to Abraham, or to his descendants, that he would be heir of the world, was not through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. For if those who are of the law are heirs, faith is made void, and the promise is nullified. For the law brings about wrath, but where there is no law, there also is no violation. For this reason, it is by faith, in order that it may be in accordance with grace, so that the promise may be certain or guaranteed to all the descendants, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. I want to begin by zeroing in on just one particular word in this passage that we have read, this passage in Romans 4. And then having looked at that word, we will move out from there to take in the larger argument of the verse and its surrounding verses. The verse I have in mind is verse 16, and that one particular word is found in the middle of that verse. It's one which, it's a word which has the basic idea of steadfast, firm, or sure. Or we could also think of it as reliable and trustworthy. Now in this verse, in verse 16, it is translated in various ways in the different versions. I don't know how your version puts it, but here's some of the ways that it's translated as I looked in the versions I have available to me. We have in some versions the word is translated sure. In others it's translated guaranteed. In still other versions, we have the idea of secure or certain. So you get the basic idea of this word. It involves sure, guaranteed, secure, or certain. And so we are dealing here with this idea of certainty, the idea of certainty. And we want to dig deeper into this verse and the verses surrounding it. But before we do, let's think a little bit about what certainty in the midst of life means to us. Well, as soon as we start thinking about it, we realize that it means a great deal. And we realize that because as soon as uncertainty is introduced, we are not happy, are we? We do not like the feeling that we are not in control, and that's what uncertainty produces. For example, raise a question mark over our health. Some diagnosis comes to us, some physical problem. Raise a question mark over our health, and immediately we are concerned. Or our income, a threat to job security. We lose a job. Raise a question mark there, and we immediately feel in trouble. We're unhappy. We're anxious. Or raise a question mark over some important relationship in the life, relationship with spouse or relationship with children. Or perhaps the question mark is one over our future. And you bring the idea of insecurity or uncertainty into any of these areas, and what happens? What happens when we experience some sort of question in these various life areas? Well, there's immediate anxiety, isn't there? Distress and probably some kind of frantic effort to reassert control. I remember in my own life, at a period of transition and change, we had been missionaries in Albania for 10 years. We'd come back stateside, and I'd spent 2 more years writing Bible lessons for the Albanian context. And we were getting close to the end of that period, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do for employment. I had a family. Kelly and I had 3 girls. All 3 girls were with us at that point, and I faced this future of uncertainty. What am I going to do? And I can remember spending hours looking through a job list and trying to think, well, how am I going to survive? How am I going to support my family? And so I mention this just as an example. Maybe you can relate to some experience in your own life where when uncertainty comes in, it produces a considerable amount of distress for us. So anyway, back to our thoughts here. Now, we recognize in these different examples I've given, we recognize the value of certainty very quickly in respect to these different life situations we've just spoken about. But here's the question: are we aware of the vital necessity of certainty in the spiritual realm? Now, Paul here in Romans 4:16, he's dealing with exactly this subject. He's dealing with this subject of certainty. Look again at the verses there. For this reason, this is Romans 4:16, for this reason it is by faith, in order that it may be in accordance with grace, so that the promise will be guaranteed. The word guaranteed there is our word, sure, certain, guaranteed, so that the promise will be guaranteed to all the descendants. Do you see it there? This emphasis on certainty, so that the promise will be guaranteed. God has provided and offers to us a certain hope. It's not the kind of hope that is, well, maybe it will work out. It's not a hope that is without foundation and solidity. No, God has provided for us a certain hope, a guaranteed hope, a hope that cannot be shaken. But then notice where the strength of this hope is found and where it is not found. It is not found in you. It is not found in anything that you can do for yourself. No, this is what Paul is saying when he so adamantly asserts that our hope is not based in law or law-keeping. The law, he makes clear, can only make you aware of how wrong you have been in your living, in your thinking, in even your desires. And we find that in verse 15. It says the law brings about wrath. The law cannot provide for you the power to escape from your sin problem. In other words, just knowing what you should be or how you should be, it doesn't set you free. The law is never enough. No, Paul makes very clear that you will never come to any stable sense of certainty and security in the spiritual realm on the basis of your performance. In fact, if you are trying to find rest with God and peace with God and certainty with God on the basis of how well you are performing, you will never find it. Take a man, for instance, will you? Take a man who has been made conscious of his sins, who is well aware of his failings, who is under a burden of shame and guilt because of them. This is not a man in a strong position. He's in a very weak position. And thus, to ask that man to aim at certainty and security in his spiritual life based upon his ability to extract himself from the spiritual pit that he is in, it's the utmost of folly. He can't do it. He can't find hope that way. He can't find peace that way. He's aware only of his shame and guilt. He doesn't know the way out. He knows his weakness. He doesn't have the strength to get out. And so there's no certainty. There's no confidence. And this actually works to keep him in the place that he's in. But no, what that man needs to know, what that person needs to know, is that God meets us there, right where we are at. And he meets us not with the judgment and punishment that we deserve, but he meets us with compassion and grace and forgiving love. He comes alongside and he says, lean on me and my strength, and I will save you. Oh, do you see? Do you see where all the certainty comes from? It does not come from us. It comes from him. It comes from his side alone. It doesn't come from you. The Christian life is not about what you can do and what you can accomplish. Not at all. It is about what he has done and what he can accomplish and what he will do for you. And because the great burden of your sin problem and the resolution of that problem lies upon him, and because he has pledged himself to take care of it for you, for this reason there is great certainty in the Christian hope. It is an unshakable hope, a hope certain and firm, a hope that cannot be done away. Oh, do you see what he has provided? A hope that is certain, a hope that is guaranteed, because it is based upon his faithfulness. Well, how then do we respond to this? How do we take in Paul's message? In the Protestant framework, if we go back to the Reformation period, what was regained was this tremendous sense of certainty and security in respect to salvation. It was considered one of the most important elements in the Christian life. You read Martin Luther, you read the Puritan divines, you read even down into the 18th century with John Wesley, and they grasped and understood the tremendous importance of this certainty in our spiritual lives, of this assurance, of this security in respect to God. You see, we do not fight our battles against our own fallen nature in a context of constant fear and worry as to whether God will accept us. We don't fight our battles in that kind of context. We're not in a context where we constantly have to be anxious. Am I with God, or has he put me aside? Oh, I failed last week. Maybe I'm not with God anymore. Oh, no. Fear as to whether we really belong to him does not have a place in this context of grace where he has adopted us and taken us in and made us his own. No, we are to fight our battles from this place of assurance, this place of confidence regarding his love for us and his commitment to help us and his ability to save us. In fact, this message of Paul regarding certainty is the very wellspring of all Christian joy. If we have failed to get a hold of this, then we will struggle to know joy. We will struggle to know confidence in our relationship with God. And it hurts us and it hinders us on every side. No, the Lord has come. He's provided this salvation. He's provided this great redemption so that we can live in a context. I'm pointing forward here to chapter 5, the first verse, so that we can live in a context of knowing that we have peace with God. But then, having said this, we must be aware that it is Satan's studied effort to keep us from knowing this kind of spiritual certainty. He doesn't want us to know it. He does everything he can to hide this from us and to keep us from knowing this certainty, to keep us from knowing this assurance of God's love for us as sinners and his ability to save us. No, Satan is constantly seeking to draw our focus back to ourselves, where there is no strength and there is no power and there is no help. So we must not let him do this. We must pose the question to ourselves, do we know this kind of certainty in our spiritual lives? Do we know this kind of certainty? And if we cannot answer, if you cannot answer in the affirmative, don't rest there. Don't rest there and say, oh, well, I don't know this kind of certainty. I guess I'll just have to kind of lump along. No, seek him. Pursue him. You remember what Jesus says, ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. Seek the Lord for this kind of spiritual certainty. What you want is a picture of the greatness of his salvation, of the greatness of what he has done for you, of the strength of it and the power of it, and to begin to know that in your own life and experience. That's what you want to ask him for. So you ask him to teach you these things that Paul is seeking to explain here in Romans 4. Ask him to make this certainty, this spiritual security, so real to you that is more real than anything else in your life and experience. Ask him to do that for you. And then as you're asking, spend time with these passages. Spend time with the passages in the New Testament which explain this kind of certainty, which set it forth, which expound upon it. Spend time with these passages even as you continue to pray for spiritual insight. And do not give over. Do not stop questing until it has been made very real to you. And if you find you struggle to do that on your own, ask for help. Ask for help from someone else. You can come to me. You can come to someone like Kelly. You can come to elders or leaders within the congregation who you recognize have a deeper spiritual experience. You can come to them and you can ask for help. You can go to a friend or an experienced Christian. You can say, I'm struggling here. Can you help me? Can you help me to grasp and know and come to experience this kind of certainty and confidence in my spiritual walk? You see, we want to grow here in our community and in our fellowship together. We want to grow into a rich experience of this great gospel certainty. That's what we want. The more the gospel is grasped, in the strength of it as Paul presents it, the more freedom we know, the more excitement and spiritual joy, and the more life there is in us, and the more desire to share this with others. It's the very heart of the whole Christian experience. It's the engine, it's the dynamic which drives it all forward. This experience of certainty, this joy of certainty in respect to God, that though I am a sinner, he has saved me. That though I am a sinner, he is at work in my heart, and I can see him changing me. I know that he's helped me overcome here, and here. And yes, I'm not at the end of the road, but he is helping me, and his faithfulness will not give over. He will bring me to the end of my journey in triumph and success. This is the kind of certainty we want to know. I want to close just to try to draw this down to a personal level and the level of our emotions where we feel and experience these things. I want to close with something from my own personal experience. Many of you know, perhaps all of you know, that my father died when I was 12, and I grew up in a certain sense from that point on as a fatherless boy. And he died right at that juncture where I needed him so much. And as I've lived out the rest of my life, I've been aware, especially at some junctures more than others, but I've often been aware of this longing for someone to take care of me, someone bigger, someone who has all the answers, someone who can meet every challenge. I've often sensed, oh Lord, I feel inadequate. I feel too small in the face of life's difficulties and challenges, in the face of spiritual battles and personal sins being wrestled with. I feel too small, Lord. And I felt this need, and I related it back to that absence of a father. But then, God is our Father. This is who God is to us. He is this one who is bigger than us, who is greater than us, who has all the wisdom that we need, who has everything that is required for us to meet life's challenges. And he's willingly, he is God to us, and he's willingly this way. He's available to us. He's wholeheartedly this way. It doesn't matter what sins you find on board. It doesn't matter what you may be struggling with and where you find yourself at any given moment or even right now. This great redemption has been provided. It has been established. It is there. It is solid. It is unshakable. It is unshakable, and you may take refuge within it. You yourself may come to see and know this great certainty, this security with God, this guarantee of eternal victory.